Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin Robbie Billups. Today it's time for the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books, and I'll let you know what I thought about them, and we always start with the pick of the week. This week's pick of the week: Wonder Woman Dead Earth #2 from DC Black Label, from creator Daniel Warren Johnson. I loved issue #1. I thought it was great. I thought issue #2 was even better. So the basic gist of this out-of-continuity DC Black Label for adult story involving Wonder Woman is that Wonder Woman just wakes up in a pod in the Batcave, and there's a post-apocalyptic world going on. There's these giant monsters and just a few straggling remains of human survivors kind of like, roaming the earth and stuff, right? And now her powers have also been slightly diminished, right? In issue #2, she has figured out that she wants to take a band of survivors to Themyscira, right? Well, the journey is perilous, and when she gets there, it's not quite what she was expecting. This book was awesome. I loved it. I really think that the action, the brutal nature of the warfare, the fighting, everything that's shown in here, the little glimpses of Diana's past, the little revelations that you have about what's going on in this world and how it affects Diana, personally even, amazing stuff. Great character work, great artwork, just fantastic. I loved it. It's big and it's explosive, but it's very nuanced and meaningful, and it really gets deep into the character of Diana and puts her through some struggles. A very well done comic book. And out of all the DC Black Label stuff, I don't know if anybody has used the format as well as Daniel Warren Johnson has. The way he lays out the pages, the composition, everything flows so well, and it's a big book. There's a lot of pages to it, but it's a breeze to read. It's very fun and very engaging. And this has been one of DC Black Label's best books. It's my pick of the week. Very close behind it was Joker Killer Smile #3, another excellent DC Black Label book. Probably one of the best ones so far. Jeff Lemire, Andrea Sorrentino, Jordi Belair, and an amazing all-star team doing a really creepy, atmospheric Joker tale. Fantastic work. It's exactly what you would expect from Lemire and Sorrentino and Belair working together on this title. So this is the conclusion of the 3-issue series, but it will be continuing in a one-shot special in May. We talked about that on the weekly pop culture wrap-up. It's going to be called Batman Smile Killer. This was a great ending, a natural, organic ending. Like I said, this book has been atmospheric, it's been creepy, and it's been just very subtle in the slow descent into madness that this one character that we'll just call the Sad Doctor, that he's been going through. A great ending, a great punch at the end. Really, really like this one a lot. Sorrentino, Belair, oh my goodness, the layouts, the composition, the coloring, everything about it really fits this melancholy tone. You got this weird juxtaposition between this really happy kids type story book type thing, and you got this crazy twisted Joker story going on. I absolutely love this book. It was a very satisfying conclusion, and I'm very amped to see the one-shot sequel coming out in May. Super excited. Let's keep on DC Black Label. We got a debut from Hill House Comics. It's The Plunge. Plunge #1. This is written by Joe Hill himself. It's got artwork by Stuart Immonen, which is amazing, with coloring by Dave Stewart. So it's really cool to see Dave Stewart work with Stuart Immonen. It's also really cool to see Stuart Immonen come back to published comic books. He's been kind of gone for a while, took a break, did a web comic, I think, with his wife. Now he's back doing this. Plunge is it seems like a simple story, but it's a great premise for a story. A salvage ship unearths a ship from like that crashed in like the 1980s, the early 80s or something, and there's something mysterious and creepy and supernatural going on. This book is kind of a little bit of a slow burn in the first issue. It's really just setting up the context, the world, the concept of the story, and the characters. But all that is very masterfully done by Joe Hill. And like I said, the artwork by Immonen, he hasn't missed a beat, especially with Dave Stewart's there on the coloring. I absolutely did like this one. I thought it was pretty solid. Maybe not as solid as some of the other first issues from Hill House Comics, but a really cool concept. I'm very intrigued to see where it's going to go, especially the further and further it leads us into some truly terrifying type stuff, right? But it's a really cool concept, really interesting, and man, when you get to the end, you're like, what? What? Plunge #1 from Hill House Comics. Also from Hill House and DC Black Label, Lolo Woods #3. So issue #1 I thought was okay. Issue #2 I really, really liked. Issue #3 I liked a lot, actually, in a different way. This book was really unsettling, very unnerving. It gets a little bit confusing, and as to like, so at first it seems, so it's about these two young ladies. They're living in this town. It's like a town, and there's this allegory of like you can't escape the town, but there's also like truly horrific and terrifying things that are going on in this town. And at first it seems like maybe they don't know what's going on, and then just wild stuff happens, right? Like wild, spooky stuff, like a skinless man just shows up and attacks them, and then you're like, wow, what was all that about, right? Like, are they not shocked and surprised by that? This book gets into some crazy stuff, some really crazy stuff, really, like I said, unnerving and unsettling. I think that Danny's artwork, especially with Tamara Bonvillain's coloring, I think they do an amazing job with this as far as the atmosphere goes. Carmen Maria Machado is telling a not so clear story. It's not very clear. It's got a lot of subtext to it, which is really nice, but it really does, especially with the artwork, it's got a creep factor to it. It's very unsettling and very unnerving. And that's the third time I said that. And that means that I mean that. This is really cool. Anyway, Lolo Woods #3, I really did like it. This book is going to be a little bit more challenging, but I really did like issue #3. Very creepy. Oh my goodness. Lolo Woods #3 out this week. Let's continue with DC. DCeased Unkillables #1. So this is started by, I think it's a 3-issue miniseries. So the DCeased book by Tom Taylor from last year, it was a smash hit. It's kind of like DC's version of Marvel Zombies in a way. So this is a story that takes place during the DCeased story. So it's not new as in like a progression of the events from the end of DCeased. It takes place concurrently with DCeased, but this focuses on what Red Hood's up to, what Deathstroke's up to, and what a few other villains are up to. So this really focuses more on the anti-hero and the villain side of it. It really sets up an interesting idea. Vandal Savage, for instance, basically just straight up says something really neat about like, this is their opportunity maybe. You know, he's like, the heroes aren't going to win, so this is our opportunity. We got to stay alive and stay sharp. I really did like this book. I thought it was cool. It didn't quite have the punching, the gut, emotional punch of some of the other issues of DCeased, but it was a really great start. And like I said, it's really cool to see the same story, but from a different perspective. Deathstroke, really interesting things about how his powers are going to work, along with the DCeased virus and all that kind of stuff. And you got some Red Hood stuff in here. I'm not usually the biggest Jason Todd fan, but I think that Tom Taylor handled it very well in here. Artwork's pretty solid throughout it as well. If you liked DCeased, no reason you're not going to like these. Plus, cool Matina covers. So there you go. Batman #89. Has anybody heard anything about this one? So Batman '89 is continuing the opening story arc by James Tynion's his first initial arc on Batman, the solo title. And it's decent. It's good. It's got different people doing the artwork. You got a little bit of Poculon. You got Gilliam March in there. But it doesn't feel inconsistent. The artwork's pretty crisp and clear, and I really liked it. The story's pretty interesting. Basically, Bruce Wayne is trying to rebuild Gotham, but at one point, all these villains got together and they hired or contacted somebody called the Designer, and there's some kind of like villainous conspiracy that's been unraveling from the past into the present day. So it's an interesting mystery. That's kind of cool. But what everybody's hype on this book about is the first appearance of Punchline, the new hench person for the Joker. It's cameo appearance, just so you know, so don't be super disappointed when you get that. Very little. This book's already skyrocketed. You're probably really not going to find it out there in the wild. People have known what's up with this one for a while. But pay attention to future issues of Batman, because we're going to have more appearances, more, and even an origin possibly, and a first cover appearance coming up here on Batman. So if Punchline is going to stand the test of time, these are books to find and get into right now. But be wary of price gouging on this one. The book itself, pretty solid. It's exactly what Tynion and company have been doing on the title for the last 3 issues. If you like that, I think you'll like this. If you're just jumping on this for the first time, you may be a little bit confused, but the story is becoming a little bit more clear to us, the reader, and of course to Batman and family in Gotham. So Batman #89 is out this week. Good luck. Justice League #41 is out this week, so it's the second issue from Robert Venditti. It's supposed to be a story that takes place during like the Scott Snyder Justice League run. So like, you know, Scott Snyder Justice League run ended and it leads right into Hell Arisen. That's leading right into Death Metal. So this is kind of a story that's supposed to fit somewhere in the midst of all the Snyder stuff. I don't know how. It seems and feels like it's recent because it's really leaning into referencing recent continuity events like Superman revealing his identity as Clark Kent to the world. But it's a pretty cool Eradicator story, and I'm a big fan of the Eradicator. Growing up in the 80s and 90s, reading Superman comics, how can I not be a fan of the Eradicator? Death and Return of Superman, The Reign of the Superman, like, it's still some of my favorite shit right there. But anyway, I really did like this one. I thought it was pretty decent. It doesn't have the big epic scope that I'm used to now in Justice League, because we've been spoiled by the Scott Snyder, James Tynion stuff. So it's a little bit more low-key, but I do like the spotlight on the Eradicator. His whole plot, everything that's going on here with Daxam and everything is really interesting to me. But I wish it could just be a bigger and epic. I just want to get into Death Metal, to be honest with you. But it's a fun little kind of fill-in type title. And like I said, I really like the way that Vendetti and Lopresti's artwork, by the way, is pretty solid throughout this issue. But I really like how they're establishing the Eradicator as a Justice League level threat. And he really should be. Flash Forward number 6 is here. This is the final issue of Flash Forward. I stopped reading this like after 2 or 3 issues. I just really didn't like it that much. I didn't even really like this issue. I got to read an early peek. DC let us have an early peek because they were like, this is going to be a big deal. It's kind of a big deal. Leads into Generation 0, which is the free comic book day special. That's leading into Generation 1, 2, 3, 4, and now upcoming 5, right? So I'm not going to try to spoil too much, but if you've seen the cover Generation 0, you know something's crazy going on with Wally West now. The new direction for Wally West is established in this issue. We have already talked about it on the channel, but at least go to your shop and like flip to the last few pages of here if you haven't been reading it, just to see what happens, because it's kind of cool, kind of bonkers, and it's going to tie into Generation 0 and the upcoming big upheaval, Death Metal, and everything else that's going to lead into no longer called DC 5G, but Generation 5. Anyway, Flash Forward number 6, that's the final issue of the series, is out this week. Got a big, impactful ending, and those that were anticipating this book was going to lean really heavy into some upcoming cosmic stuff, you're right. Aquaman number 57 contains another first appearance in comic books this week because it looks like someone's having a baby. Anyway, Aquaman number 57 was a pretty decent issue. Kelly Sue DeConnick's run on Aquaman's been good, but it doesn't always hit all the right beats, right? And this is something for me in this issue. Sometimes it just feels a little soap opera-y, you know, not quite as sophisticated as Kelly Sue DeConnick's work can be, even some of her work on Aquaman. But I do like this one. I like the relationship building that they're doing again with Arthur and Mira. That's really cool stuff. A new character, a new Aqua Baby, so that's always super exciting. Issue number 57, though, pretty solid artwork for sure by Rockin Company. But it's okay. Aquaman is okay. It's not at the Johns level again, and I know it hasn't been at the Johns level since Johns left, but this has been pretty decent. But if you're into collecting up first appearances, don't just worry about Punchline. We got Aqua Baby. Aqua Baby. Was that a spoiler? We all knew that was coming, right? Anyway, Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, number 8 is here. I've been loving this book so much. Really got to sing its praises. Matt Fraction, Steve Lieber, Nathan Fairbairn, they've been absolutely the best Superman book right now. The best Superman-related book for me is Jimmy Olsen. This book is so much fun. It's absurd. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but it's got a very intricate structure and plot and murder mystery type thing that's going on, but it's ridiculous, and it really leans into the absurdity of Jimmy Olsen, the character, and of course his comic book past. So I really like those references to the old school stuff. I really like the tongue-in-cheek approach. It's got a great structure. It's mystery. It's a bit of a challenging read at times. It doesn't just lay things out for you. There's still things that they haven't revealed, but that's part of the fun. And the book even pokes fun at itself because of it. Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, number 8. It's a 12-issue series, so we only got 4 issues left. Yeah, we only have 4 issues left. And if you haven't been reading this, definitely pick up the trade when it comes out, or just jump in, get some back issues. This book has been fun. If you like fun comic books with interesting, innovative structure, but it doesn't take itself too seriously and even pokes fun at itself, Jimmy Olsen's the book for you. And I know, I hate Jimmy Olsen. And I love that book. Wonder Twins number 12 is here. This is the final issue of Wonder Twins, but if you look at the cover, it says, see you next series. So I really hope we get to see Mark Russell and Stephen Byrne come back and do more of this title. I've always hated the Wonder Twins. I hated them when I was a kid on that stupid cartoon. I hated them any time that they referenced it in the comic books. Hated it. I have adored this series. It's been great. Mark Russell does a great job of understanding that these characters are kind of silly, and he plays with that, but he's also telling a great story. Another book, like Jimmy Olsen, that is a serious book, but doesn't take itself too seriously. It was a great conclusion, a great setup to future adventures of the Wonder Twins. I would love to see more of this. This, to me, was the standout of Wonder Comics outside Naomi. Naomi's pretty dope. Wonder Twins, though, very surprising to me how much I enjoyed this. Very satisfying conclusion. Hope it comes back. The 100-page giant for Wonder Woman issue number 3 is out this week. It's got new content. It's got classic content, more modern classic content. So it's a fun way to, you know, just grab these up and revisit some Wonder Woman stories and other stories. You got Green Lantern in here and other things like that. And it's got some new stories. These books have been fun, and I've been really, really enjoying them. Speaking of reprints, we got a $1 reprint of New Teen Titans number 2, which is the first appearance of Deathstroke. So if you've never read this, here's your chance, and that's really, really cool, right? Let's jump over to Marvel, because we've got Wolverine back, and I want to point out a few covers. I'm usually not a big cover guy, but that Alex Ross cover is fire. There's a die-cut cover by Chip Kidd. This reminds me of that Wolverine comic from the 90s. Was that number 50, right? With the yellow cover, and it had the Weapon X files. I got like 2 or 3 copies of that, and 2 of them are, I mean, like a couple of them are from when I was a kid, when I was younger. I ate that shit up. But anyway, so I love that cover so much. But I also got the regular cover because that's pretty dope too. Adam Kubert right there. So anyway, Wolverine's back in his own solo title. It's Dawn of X now. Benjamin Percy, who is the writer of X-Force, who writes an amazing Wolverine in that book, is the writer of this. You got Adam Kubert and Victor Bogdanovic as the artist. So you end this, and it's $7.99. That's pretty pricey. It is 60 full story pages though. 60 full story illustrated pages. I didn't even include the info pages, you know, because like all the X-Men books have the white page with the black text, and it's just a bunch of info stuff, like info dumps. That stuff's in here too. Not counting that, it's 60 full pages of art. So you got 2 stories. You got one story that's kind of the main story. They're both 30 pages. So it's basically like 2 extra-sized issues in one. So I think it justifies the price. And it's also pretty badass. I really did like it. Benjamin Percy understands the character Wolverine, not just how awesome he's supposed to be, how intense this book is supposed to be, and it's very violent. It's got a great flow and energy throughout it. But he also understands the character of Wolverine, and it comes through. His stoicism, his sense of honor. It's all present. It's all there. Adam Kubert is like some of the best artwork I've ever seen from him. He is a veteran Wolverine artist. I loved his Wolverine run back in the 90s. Seeing his art today on Wolverine was just amazing. I absolutely loved it. Bogdanovic does a great job at the end too. He's kind of a little bit like a Capullo type style, so their styles don't mesh very well, but they are 2 completely separate stories. The first story is going to continue. That was really interesting with some cool bits, but the last story is a complete story that has a lot of setup for some stuff to come. It involves Omega Red, and it involves vampires, and it really, really got me excited. Anyway, this has been a fantastic book. First issue for Wolverine. I haven't really liked a Wolverine solo title for a while now. Not even really the Jason Aaron stuff. And we're talking years since I've really liked Wolverine's solo book. Basically since Rucka and Miller, right? That's probably the last runs I really liked. Anyway, this is the start of something very promising. I liked it. I love what Benjamin Percy's doing with X-Force. That's continuing in the pages of Wolverine, at least with issue number 1. I loved it. Plus, you give me a die-cut cover? Pfft, crazy. Moving on with Dawn of X, we got Marauders, issue number 8, Marauders issue number 8 is out this week. Marauders has been one of my favorite X books right now. The recent events that have happened in Marauders, they're starting to kind of be revealed to the rest of the world, to the rest of the X-Men characters. Really great stuff here, great character work, good solid artwork from Caselli. I think that this first issue, issue number 7, felt a bit rushed. It feels like he was more on schedule in this one. I'm loving the story though. Jerry Duggan's doing such a great job with this one, taking characters that usually, you know, like Kate Pride is pretty awesome, but what has been done with that character in here, and then you got Storm, you got Emma Frost, you got Bishop, you got some great characters, and seriously, there are some of the most awesome Iceman moments you have ever seen in the pages of Marauders #8. I'm loving this book. I'm loving the intrigue of it. I'm loving the characterization behind it. I'm just loving it. Marauders #8 blew me away. Loved it. New Mutants #7 is here, ending the initial arc from Jonathan Hickman. So Ed Brisson's been doing his stuff with the newer New Mutants, and then you got Hickman in here doing the classic New Mutant story where they go off into the Shi'ar, Bobby and Sam want to reunite and all that kind of stuff, right? So Hickman has made this one a very silly type book, right? It gets even a little meta, it breaks the fourth wall at times. It may seem a little disconcerting, a little out of character for the rest of the X books to be taken so seriously, and this one not to be so much. But I thought it was fine. Rod Reese's artwork was really, really cool. I like the ending of this. I like the setup. I was expecting more of a bigger, more elaborate setup, but there are some interesting things, little tiny seeds, these little Krakoan seeds that are planted that Hickman keeps laying out. Some more of that stuff in here. But if you're a big classic New Mutants fan, I think you're going to like this. Hickman loves the New Mutants. He loves Sam. He loves Bobby. You can tell that. He brought them into his Avengers run, for goodness sake, right? So he loves these characters, and I thought that this was a pretty solid issue. New Mutants hasn't been my favorite X-Men book, but it hasn't been my least favorite X-Men book, and I have been enjoying it. But I actually think I like the Brisson stuff a little bit better because it ties so much into some of those characters created by Grant Morrison and New X-Men. Anyway, Machine Man 2020 is here, and unless you are the most hardcore Iron Man fan and 100% sold to get everything involving the Iron Man 2020 stuff, it's majorly skippable. I love the character Machine Man. I feel like Machine Man's been kind of acting way out of character in the pages of Iron Man recently, and especially in this issue, but it does explain kind of why that's going on. He's going after Joe Costa. He's part of the robot revolution. The Iron Man 2020 stuff is a decent story, but it should just be a story in Iron Man. It doesn't need to be this big thing that's going to spiral out into all these different books and everything like that, especially with Empire coming right up. Too much too fast, Marvel. You don't learn. I'm cool with like 20 X books as long as they're good, but don't give me a bunch of meaningless tie-ins to an Iron Man 2020 story. It should just be a story arc in Iron Man. Whatever. Marvel's Voices #1 is here, and this is based on a podcast they did where they would have creators of color telling stories of characters of color, or something like that. So that the podcast was set up like that, and I think it was a visual podcast as well. So this is basically some of those short stories in comic book printed form. There's some really cool stories in here, some great work from great characters, great creators like Vita Ayala and stuff. I loved their Forge story in here, but it's pretty decent. It's a great way to celebrate Marvel history and Black history all at the same time. Marvel's Voices #1 is out this week. Daredevil is out this week with issue #18, and such an awesome cover there. Man, Chip Zdarsky, I'm sure everybody's getting tired of us talking about how great this Daredevil book is. Chip Zdarsky understands the legacy of the character. He understands the history of the character. He understands how to make a comic book in the Marvel way and to make it work and make it pop. He knows what to do. He knows how to make it feel classic and steeped in the legacy, but new and fresh. And then you got Jorge Fornes on the artwork. You know, we got Marco Cicchetto on this book a lot, and love that cat's artwork. But Jorge Fornes was born to do this. It's reminiscent of David Mazzucchelli, so it kind of feels like Born Again a little bit with the artwork. The story's really hitting a point. Everything Zdarsky's been laying since issue #1 is really starting to heat up. I said that last time. It's heating up even more. At this point, we're boiling over the pot. Some crazy big monumental things happen in this issue as far as this world and this story and what's been going on with Hell's Kitchen and Matt Murdock and Detective Cole and all that stuff. I love it. Cannot sing the praises of Daredevil enough right now. Chip Zdarsky and company have just been amazing on this. Daredevil #18. If you're not on it yet, you got to get on it. Guardians #2 is here. Guardians of the Galaxy. The second issue by Al Ewing. I was not very impressed by the first issue. I thought the second issue was way better. It felt a little bit more like a Guardians book at time. It had some great action scenes, some really cool cosmic ideas, a great Star-Lord moment, a very like cliffhanger ending where you're like, what? It's not at all, right? Nah. Anyway, but I thought this issue was definitely better than issue #1, but it wasn't quite like super powerful, super hooking and engaging and compelling. But I'll tell you this, Unkillables artwork in here, there are pages where it's like so psychedelic, so cosmic, so cool, and it's some of the best composition and page layouts on shelves this week can even be in this issue right here. So I thought the issue was okay. A vast improvement for me over issue number 1, but it still didn't quite sell me on this book, on the direction and all that kind of stuff. But you also got Hercules in here, so if you're a fan of Hercules, check it out. And it's a cool new reinterpretation of the Greek pantheon, so that's kind of cool too. Fantastic Four number 19 is here, and Dan Slott's finally ending the Point of Origin story. I've enjoyed the story. I thought it was cool. I even think it has a very satisfying conclusion. This should have been 3 to 4 issues. Not 6, kind of got draggy. Still, even at the end, it feels a little draggy. Like, this story, to me, makes, like, Lord of the Rings feel brisk. You know what I'm saying? Which, by the way, I recently rewatched the 3 Lord of the Rings films, extended cuts. The pacing is kind of impeccable in those, even for 4-hour movies. Anyway, for 6 issues, it was just a bit too much for me. I'm glad the story's wrapped up, and we also got a really cool setup for the next story involving my man Wyatt Wingfoot, so that's super cool. Fantastic Four is solid. It's decent, but it's not the greatest FF run out there. And Slott, you know, came out with a bang, and it's just been kind of mediocre for that, you know. But I'd rather have a mediocre Fantastic Four book than no Fantastic Four book. So I still get joyous. It's a joyful occasion to read a Fantastic Four. But man, this Point of Origin story just went on a bit too long. Cool concept, just a little overwrought, I would say. Captain Marvel number 15 is here. Kelly Thompson, what she's been doing these last few issues of Captain Marvel is she's been doing some crazy off-the-wall type stuff, and that's interesting enough. But usually Kelly Thompson is a very dense, at times overly verbose type writer. That has gone away in the pages of Captain Marvel. This book is fast, it's quick, it's got some great moments, especially with the confrontation with the Hulk, Vox, what's the dude's name? Vox, Supreme Vox, right, whatever. So you got him on the cover there, and that's neat. Some interesting developments there. And you got a great moment between captains in this issue, Captain America and Captain Marvel, that I thought was so on point and so in character for both of them that it worked so well. Captain Marvel has kind of lost some of its luster for me. I don't consider it a must-read. This has been an interesting story. I'm really interested to see how this is going to develop, but I really would like to see this book kind of like turn a corner and do something really cool character-wise and story-wise and just get big and epic, right? So it's kind of hitting a lull in the story for me, but it's kind of been doing that for the last few issues, and I've kind of been kept in by this this last Avenger story, which is just kind of okay for me. But anyway, Captain Marvel number 15 is out this week. Let's jump to some indie comics. Red Mother number 3 here from Boom Studios. Jeremy Hahn, Danny Luckert, a fantastic issue. I loved it. If you liked issue number 1 and you liked issue number 2, no reason why you're not going to love issue number 3. It's got the same pace. It's got the same revelation. It's got the same new mystery coming up. So with every revelation, we got like more mystery. She gets this crazy like heart puzzle box at the end of issue number 2. So this focuses a lot on that. It still has excellent character work. She's still dealing with the trauma of her attack, losing an eye. She's seeing these crazy visions. It's very... I almost said it's a subtle creepy, and it's not. Like, the book presents its suspense in a subtle manner, but then it hits these shock, like, just these moments. And this has another one of those moments, a couple of those moments. I'm loving it. It's a slow burn, but it's a character study. It's dealing really intently with the mystery and what's going on. It doesn't reveal too much. It reveals just enough, and it keeps me completely engaged and enticed as to what's coming up. I have loved this book. This has been one of my favorite books of the last few months, has been Red Mother. Red Mother. Number 3 does not disappoint. Check it out if you haven't already. From Dark Horse Comics, we got Bang, number 1. Bang is basically a James Bond story that we've all wanted to hear, written by Matt Kent. It's got great artwork, too, by Wilfredo Torres, Nayoung Kim, and Nate Picos round out that creative team. It's very James Bond. It makes no apology for that. But you know the idea that we have, and it's kind of like a fan theory, if you will, but that James Bond is just a code name, right? And that's why you can have these different actors be James Bond. It kind of deals with that. It deals with it in a really cool Matt Kent type way. If you like Matt Kent's work, no reason you're not going to like this one. It's got that mystery. It's got a lot of innovative type techniques to the story that involve reader participation a little bit in a way, code breaking and stuff like that. So that's interesting. But straight up a Bond book, but does a very cool take and twist on the Bond story, and I really, really liked it. So this is one of your sleeper hits of the week, Bang #1, and there are already rumblings out there that they're wanting to launch this into a TV show or a movie or something like that, so pay attention to that. Hellboy and the BPRD is back with the return of Effie Kolb. That's one of the characters from The Crooked Man, which was one of the more popular Mignola Hellboy stories. Richard Corbin did the artwork on that one, so if you're a big fan of that, surprise, we're revisiting that, we're getting back to it. This was a great issue. Zach Howard's artwork, wow, really liked it. Very gritty, very textured. If you don't read Hellboy, I don't know if this is going to like turn you into a Hellboy fan, but Hellboy is one of the best comic books of all time, and you definitely should read it, for sure, for sure. And if you haven't been reading the new stuff, it's really fun. Even though Mike Mignola doesn't do the interior artwork, but he did do that cover, the artwork's fine, the vibe is there, the atmosphere is still there, and this is a really cool story that I really did enjoy, that throwback to The Crooked Man, and I liked it. So if you like the old school stuff, if you like that Crooked Man stuff, definitely read this one. Really cool. First of 2 issues, by the way. Out this week, also from Dark Horse Comics, we got Skull Digger and Skeleton Boy, issue #3. The way I've described this is, what if the Punisher found little Bruce Wayne after his parents were murdered, and then he became the Punisher's Robin? That's basically what this is. So Skull Digger is this 90s inspired vigilante character, and what I love about what Lemire's doing with the world of Black Hammer is that he's setting them in the time periods appropriate to the commentary that he's telling about the comic book industry. Right? So in the 90s, when you had all those extreme heroes, right? That's what this book's about. So it's set in the 90s. Some really cool stuff here. It's got nuance to it. It's got nice, shocking revelations. It's got beautiful artwork. Tonsi Sonjik, Steve Wands letters pretty much every Jeff Lemire book, and he does it so just amazingly well. This book has been so much fun. I love the artwork. It's clean and it's crisp. It's got a noirish style. It feels like a 90s comic, but it doesn't look and have the atmosphere of a 90s comic, if that makes sense. As far as the artwork goes, Jeff Lemire can do no wrong. He's got great books out this week. He's got great books out surely next week. It's like this dude is not stopping. He's like writing 8 comic books all at a time. Like he's just got like 8 computers going, and he's just something like, I don't know what he's doing, but he's doing something, and he's doing it right. So I hope he continues doing it. Anyway, from the world of Black Hammer, Skull Digger and Skeleton Boy, issue #3. Amazing. Loved it. From Image Comics, we got On the Stump, #1. This is written by Chuck Brown. It's got artwork by Prinzi and lettering by Clayton Cowles. Chuck Brown is one of the co-creators of Bitterroot, which we'll talk about Bitterroot in just a second, because it's back. It's back today. On the Stump is a really interesting concept. It's basically a mashup of politics and wrestling. So what if our senators and our congressmen and women, what if they had to get in a ring and fight it out to get their laws and legislation passed, right? So that's exactly what it is. So you got 2 opposing viewpoints from 2 opposing senators. Well, they get in the ring and they duke it out, like in a very brutal manner. That's what On the Stump is. It's a really cool concept. It's got some great commentary in it. Really did like it. It's got nice, fun artwork. I think if you like Bitterroot, you'll like this one. It's a different story, but it kind of has a very similar vibe and flow to it, especially with the artwork. Prinzi's artwork was really cool, and I really liked it. Clayton Cowles is a fantastic letterer and a great writer in his own right. But it's really cool to see this On the Stump #1. I thought it was a cool idea. It was a wild enough idea to keep me engaged and compelled to come back for issue #2 and beyond. We were talking about Bitterroot. It's back. Issue #6, kicking off the second story arc of Bitterroot. Set in Harlem in the 1920s. It's about this family. They're of monster hunters. It's really good. I really liked it. I love the first arc. If you've never checked it out, get the trade paperback. I think you'll like it, especially if you like, families of Monster Hunter, that kind of stuff. Really cool stuff. Sanford Green's artwork, oh my goodness, it's amazing. This is written by Chuck Brown and David F. Walker. Great voices in the industry. This is a great, fun comic book. They're building up new direction. The direction that the book takes in Arc 2 is fantastic. It's got a great character work with that family dynamic and the way it works, and just the world that's being built is so fantastic and imaginative. Bitterroot #6 is out this week. Super excited about that. Undiscovered Country #4 is out this week. Scott Snyder, Charles Soule and Company reveal a lot in issue #4, but they don't reveal a whole lot. right? This book is wonky. Very simple premise, it seems. America closes itself off from the rest of the world. Years later, they send out an invitation for people to come and see what's up. But when they get there, it's like some kind of post-apocalyptic Mad Max crazy world, right? So what's going on? We don't quite know. This is going to be a slow burn, but I actually really like it. Snyder and Soule are taking time, letting us know about the characters one by one. Each book, each issue so far has been kind of themed around one character while slowly revealing more about the insanity that's happening within the walls of the United States of America in this world. It's crazy, it's wild, it's weird, and I really like it. Now, obviously, we know that they've already optioned this for a movie or a TV show. I think it's a movie, right? So this is a really cool concept, and I'm interested to see how quickly they're going to like start revealing even more. But it seems like the flow is going to be like each issue reveal a little bit about a character, reveal a little bit about the story. Kind of like in a Lost type way when Lost first started. But Undiscovered Country is completely different than Lost. But this book is cool, and I'm liking it, and I'm glad I'm sticking with it because it's intriguing and it's compelling. It's not the sleekest and most, the best read of the week, but it's a really enticing concept to me, and I really like it. And the mystery is really compelling to me, and I keep coming back to know what in the hell is going on exactly. Right? Family Tree number 4 is here. Speaking of Jeff Lemire, another book from Jeff Lemire this week with artwork by Phil Hester. I've been loving this one. It's about a girl who starts turning into a tree. Seems like a simple idea, but it's filled with so much conspiracy, mystery, action, adventure, heart-wrenching drama, tragedy, and even comedy at times. Jeff Lemire is just a master of the medium right now, and Phil Hester is the perfect artist for this book. His angular style really helps the frantic flow and pace of this book. This is very heavy on, first of all, explanation, but also a very action-oriented issue as well. Really cool stuff. Family Tree number 4, simple idea, brilliant, nuanced comic book with some of the best action in comic books this week. Family Tree number 4. Middle West number 15 is here. A little bit of a slower issue. We're kind of stepping back on focusing on some other characters and other elements of the world, but this continues to be one of Scotty Young's best work. I love the artwork by Jorge Corona and company. Really liking this one. It's a great story. It's starting to hit a slow burn. It had a really fast pace at first, and now it's starting to slow up, but it's just the calm before the storm, right? Because you can feel the tension building. You can feel everything just rising to a fever pitch. It's about to explode, probably in the next issue. But Middle West continues to be a great, fun, light fantasy that is great. Fantastic. That's out this week. From Aftershock Comics this week, we've got God Killers number 1, written by Mark Sable with artwork by Mon House. This was pretty decent. It was okay. It wasn't completely engaging to me, but it's basically about these people that are like this group of like special forces that have been gobbled together to fight these Islamic terrorists that have like this supernatural type thing that's going on. I don't know. It wasn't necessarily completely clear all the way through. By the end of it, you do kind of get the vibe, and it is a little bit interesting. It's a little, there's all those stories about like the Nazis and the occult. It's kind of like that, but with like Islamic terrorism and the occult or something like that. So that's kind of interesting. It's okay. It didn't really completely capture me or engage me. There's a lot of good stuff out this week. So God Killers is just kind of, I don't know. It's just kind of okay. I'm kind of on the fence on this one. Maybe I'll check out issue number 2 and see what I think after that. From Valiant Comics, we have Dr. Tomorrow number 1. This wasn't a bad idea. I really liked this story. I thought it was pretty cool. It's basically about a kid in the present day, and all of a sudden, a superhero shows up, and it's him as a superhero from the future, and he's Dr. Tomorrow, right? And he's got to come back in time to like save it, and then there's other forces going on around that. So, it's a little cliche at times. It's got a very typical superhero structure, but it's not a bad comic book. It's just not the greatest one on shelves this week, but it's pretty solid and pretty decent. And so if you like the Valiant stuff, I think it's worth checking out. I may come back and check out the second issue for sure, but it's a cool, interesting concept. You imagine if you were a kid and an older version of you who's a superhero comes back in time. I mean, that's pretty neat. And then you become his sidekick. What? So it's got an element of fun and an excitement to it. But it is a bit cliched at times, I would say. Savage Bastards number 1 is a new Western book from Mad Cave Studios. This book, by the end of it, I was very compelled with this story, and I was really sold on wanting to come back and read more about it. It's about this dude who has attained powers of immortality, and he just, has a bunch of bastard children, right? And so the dude's name is Savage, I think, so get it, Savage Bastards. Yeah, that's kind of neat, right? So now he's gathering them all up. It's almost like in Infinity when Thanos is gathering up all of his children, and he not for good purposes. So it's kind of like that, set in the Western time. It's got some interesting character work. The dialogue is actually really nice. At times, though, the story is very muddy and unclear as the story progresses. You do get the gist of it at the end, but I don't know, as you're going, it doesn't really help itself by keeping itself like enticing. You have to get all the way through it to really kind of get everything. At least I did. So the book was all right. It's got artwork that really fits the story. But the book was okay. It was pretty decent. So if you want to find something really super low key, check out Savage Bastards this week. But what I'd highly recommend from Mad Cave Studios is Over the Ropes. Over the Ropes #3, written by Jay Sandlin with artwork by Antonello Costino, Justin Birch on the lettering. I'm really liking this one. It's set in the 90s. It's set in the world of wrestling, but it's about a character who's just trying to follow his dreams. So he's a wrestler. He's just a jobber. He's just there to make the stars look good, right? He's there to lose to them, right? Well, one day he flips the script and goes against that script. I guess that's what that means, right? When you flip it. So he flips it and he defeats the champion, right? And so now he's the champion, and now he's got fandom, and now they're caught in this thing where they kind of have to keep him on the card, but at the same time, they want to like take this kid out, right? So it really starts getting deep in here. If you're a big fan of wrestling, I would highly encourage you to check it out. Even if you're not a fan of wrestling, though, it's just a very well-written, very well-illustrated, very well-executed comic book. Over the Ropes #3 from Mad Cave Studios this week. From Scout Comics, we have The Adventures of Byron. This is a one-shot, but it's going to be the first of many one-shots to come, I believe. If you like fun, goofy, silly things like Invader Zim, stuff like that, I think this is going to be right up your alley. I read it. I did enjoy it. It's not going to change your life. You're not going to find the meaning of the world in here. You're not going to reconsider your life or anything like that. But if you like really silly, off-the-wall type stuff, I would highly recommend checking out Adventures of Byron. It's a one-shot. And if you're local, this cat, Chris Hammer, I believe is his name, is supposed to be at my comic shop this Saturday doing a signing. So all you deepers out there, pay attention to that and come and get one and get it signed and meet the creators. That's super cool too. Adventures of Byron, the one-shot out this week. From Vault Comics, we have Heist, or How to Steal a Planet #4. So it's a heist. It's a space heist. They're heisting this whole planet, a planet just filled with like thieves and murderous scum and stuff like that, right? So it does your typical structure of a heist film, of a heist story, but for me, it's just not working as the comic book. It doesn't have a very quick pace to it. It kind of gets bogged down, I think, with its narration, kind of slows the flow of the story down for me. I think there's one more issue, so I definitely will be reading it all together after issue #5 to see if I can pick up on the flow a little bit better. But this has been one of those rare Vault books that I just am not completely sold on. But Heist #4 is out this week. A Vault book I absolutely adore is back this week, though, and it's Sarah and the Royal Stars #6. Really cool Asian and Persian influenced fantasy that's also inspired by mythology and astrology even. Really liking this one. Sarah and the Royal Stars #6 kicks off the second arc with a bang. Lots of explanations, a little bit of new directions, a great sense of adventure and characterizations and tragedy. Some great stuff happens in the pages of issue #6. I love Audrey Mock's artwork. John Sway's doing a great job building up this fantasy world. I'm not super fan of fantasy, but I love this one. I really like it. And like I said, I love the ties that it has to mythology, to astrology, and all that kind of stuff. Really do like it. Sarah and the Royal Stars #6 out this week. And finally, I want to talk about Archie Meets the B-52s. This is a one-shot comic book. I love these silly things when Archie meets the Punisher, he met the Turtles, or he met Kiss, or the Ramones, or all that kind of stuff. So he meets the B-52s. Archie and the gang meets the B-52s. If you don't like silly Archie stuff, you're not going to like it. But if you're a big fan of the B-52s, I would encourage you to pick this up. I'm also a big fan of Mike Allred, so I got the cover B there. But I do love Archie, and I do love the B-52s, so I definitely wanted to read this. It's silly. It's okay. I wish Mike Allred would have done it. That, I think it would have been a little bit better, but it's just a wild enough idea. It's an absurd enough idea that it works. I love all these Archie Meets books that they do. So Archie Meets the B-52s was a no-brainer for me. So that's what I read this week. That's what I thought about it. What are you reading? What are you excited for? What are you thinking? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Please do like, share, and subscribe. Click the notification bell so you get all the updates when we drop a new video. And we do shows like this. We do a lot. So thank you guys so much for checking out the video. Be sure to join us at patreon.com/PCP, where you can unlock exclusive content and early access, including a downloadable audio version of the weekly comic book review available hours before the video actually drops on YouTube. I've been Rockin Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading.